Picking up from yesterday's lesson, we did completing the square yesterday, so today we're just using the quadratic formula, which I've heard quite a few of you sing or say. Once again, you ladies had it, and like you started off a little shaky yesterday, and then all of a sudden you chimed in, and everybody by the end it was. Okay, go ahead, do it. It was worse yesterday, Destiny, so at least again. So I don't. I try not to. So we have our quadratic formula. Um, we've got our quadratic formula. So for instance, if I once again I put a full example in the notes. If we're defining we need to make sure it's equal to 0, then we can define our a, b, and c. So we have 4x squared plus 19x minus 5 equals 0. So our a is 4, our b is 19, our c is negative 5. This is nothing new. I substitute each of these values into the quadratic, and we work it through, and we get to where our solution is, which there are going to be 2 of them. So we're just going to jump to this example, make sure we understand how to do it. Who wants to help me? Thank you, Jada. Jada, what's A? A is going to be 1. B is. C is. Okay, so I have x equals, going off the song Sarah, Destiny, and Sada sang, and Victoria. Right, we're going to substitute these values in, so I get negative. Negative parentheses what? I'm sorry, did you say it? Negative 4. Negative parentheses negative 4, plus or minus. Square root. Negative 4 squared. All over 2 times 1. Make sure that you put your vinculum, your fraction line, underneath all of it. Okay, it's not just underneath one part. So we're going to go ahead and simplify this. Negative 4 makes positive 4, plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 60 all over 2. Oh, we're almost done already. We're just going to simplify this, Destiny, and then simplify the square root. I would prefer 3 steps, but 2 will get us there. Minus 60, 34. Okay. 44 would be better. I would say. And it will be negative. Boy, sorry. 16 minus 60. 16 minus 60. All right, guys, so we need to reduce the negative square root negative 44. If we have a square root under a negative, what does it have? I. And then 44, does it have a square inside of it? What? 4. 4 is the biggest square inside of 44. 4 times what? 11. So, Destiny, if you don't have the room, could you have room for 2 steps? Or yes, 2 steps? Okay, so we'll do 2 more steps. So we have x equals 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 times 11. So the square root of negative 4 is 2i. I lied one last for sure last. Okay. Yeah, I need to make sure everybody's good with this. Reducing the square root of negative 44, turning that into 2i square root 11. Right, and here's where I want you guys to be careful, because this is the error I see in work. That 2 divides into every item, every monomial, right? Every monomial. So it divides into the 4, and it divides into the 2i square root 11. It doesn't divide into the 11. Please do not put like the square root of 5.5. Okay, only divide 2 divided by 2 is the I square root 11. Yeah. Yes, Victoria. This to here? Okay. So the negative here is what turns into the I. And the square root of 4 is 2. There is no square root of 11, so it stays underneath. Okay. Once you're getting good at this, honestly, you should be jumping from, like, this shouldn't be a step if you're getting decent at it. You should be jumping from here to this. We good? All right, so why don't you guys try the next one on your own? X squared minus 28x plus 196 by using the quadratic formula. Try to follow those steps. Well, it's this thing. Oh, no, you don't have. No, it's here. You can, sure. I'll use easier numbers, so on the test, probably not. Probably not on the test. I'll use the easier numbers. Right. No, at this point in time in the notes, yeah, I'm not going to give you have to do 28 squared minus 4 times 1 times 196. Oh, yeah, I mean, I can't tell your homework. So 4 times 196 should be 784. Oh, careful. Ooh. Did Mr. Bates design this problem in an interesting fashion? Don't overthink it. All right, guys, we okay with A is 1, B is negative 28, C is 196? X equals negative 28 plus or minus the square root of negative 28 squared minus 4 times 1 times 196 all over 2 times 1. Need that white out again, Vic? Is that what you said? Oh. And was I correct? 4 times 196, 784? So, since you guys were telling me. Okay. By the way, tricks, 4 times 196. If you guys stacked it, you'd get 6 carry here, 4 times 6 is, 4, carry the 2, all that junk. But you can also look at it and say, how far away, what number is 196 really close to? 200. What's 4 times 200? 800. How far away from 200 is it? 4. What's 4 times 4? What's 16 underneath 800? 784. Huh? You wouldn't have the negative 28 squared, but you could do 30 minus 2 times 30 minus 2, which is 900 minus 60 minus 4, or plus 4. Mondays and Tuesdays. Mondays and Tuesdays. Okay. All right. So this gets us 0. So, what's the difference between the first example and this example besides the imaginary portion? There's one solution. The other one had a plus or minus, so it had 2 solutions. This one has 1 solution. That leads us to the next page. No, there's not. Well, this could be real or imaginary, depending. If there's a negative under the square root, which is the next page. I don't know. Possible. I don't know. No, it's possible. I don't know. Oh, I've got work I've got to get done. Okay. If you don't mind. Okay. Just checking. Okay. So, guys, really quick. Well, not really quick, but you need to stop your side conversations. Go back to the first one that I typed out, that example. The example I typed out on using the quadratic formula. How many solutions were there? 2. And they were both what? Real. Okay? In the first equation, we had 2 real solutions. If we graphed the equation, the parabola would cross the x-axis twice. In the first example, the one that I typed out, we had 2 real solutions. They were 1/4 and -5. Had 2 real solutions, 1/4 and -5, and it would cross the x-axis twice. In the second equation, we had 2 non-real solutions, or imaginary is fine. But in the second equation, we had 2 non-real solutions. If we graph this equation, the parabola would cross the x-axis 0 times. 0 times. Nonsense. I don't know. Yes. Sure. Okay. Nathan Watkins asked me, could I have written 0 real solutions? Yes. Could you write 2 imaginary? Yes. I wrote 2 non-real. Those are all meaning the same thing for the most part. In this context, right? In this context. And finally, in the last equation, we had how many real solutions? 1. And how many times did we cross the x-axis? 1. Right? How do you say once? Huh? Yeah. And what would that translate? Does that literally translate to once, or is that just the closest thing you could say to close to? So it means one time, or what does that mean? Yeah. The first one. So how would the fairy tale phrase "once upon a time" be said? Like when you start off a fairy tale. No, you've never. They don't do fairy tales in Sweden. Yeah. They're like, there's only life and reality. We will deal with it now. Okay, guys. Refocus. Okay. These are three different types of solutions that we could have had in these quadratics. Either two real, two non-real, one real. What was different about each one that determined how many we got? It's in the notes right underneath it, yes. But the part underneath the square root is what determined it. If it was a negative under the square root, that's what gave us two imaginary solutions. If it was a real number under the square root, that's what gave us, positive number of the square root, that's what gave us the two real solutions. And when it was 0 was when we got only one real solution. So what part of the solution determined how many real solutions we had was b squared minus 4ac. B squared minus 4ac. Only yours in the Dungeons in the second edition of D&D, they had something called Phaco, which was to hit AC 0, to hit armor class 0, and it was based off of a negative number. So in other words, in order to hit you want a lower number, so to hit AC 0, you need a higher number on the D20. Had a reciprocal relationship. More math was involved. 2. Oh, 3.5. 3 was bloated. So, all right. What? I've already told you yes. All right. So we're going to fill this in here, guys. This is simply a restatement, but it's much more technical. If the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac, is less than 0, which means what? Negative. B squared minus 4ac less than 0. If the discriminant underneath, which is underneath the square root is negative, what's under the square root is negative, we get 2 non-real. I'll put all three ways you guys want to write it. Well, I didn't plan on writing three different things here, but people want to be like, can we write it this way? Can we write it this way? Can we write it this way? So, I wasn't, okay. Your roasting must be pretty weak if you consider that a roast. Oh. Well, people shouldn't ask what you think of it if they don't want an honest answer. Okay. All right, guys, my preference are either of the first two. I'd like you to avoid the no real solutions, okay? My preference is the first two because saying no real doesn't inform me of what type and how many answers there are. When we're talking about the context of quadratics, there are going to be two. If it's no real, that means they must be imaginary, which in imaginary solutions always come in pairs. But that's a bit of thought process. It's instantaneous for me. It's instantaneous for some of you. But I'd like to actually I'd like you, instead of talking about it in the negative, I'd like you to say what type of solutions they are, not what type of solutions they aren't. Right? That's like, it's like saying, well, you know, what color is that bag? And you guys are like, not blue. Okay. Right. So, b squared minus 4ac, once again, one real. And then 2 reals. No. Aiden, it's not about how many times it crosses. Good question. So this applies to your homework questions where it says find the discriminant. The discriminant is just b squared minus 4ac. Describe the nature of the roots, then solve using the quadratic formula. Don't make your life hard. We need to stay focused though. Number 4. Let's take a look at number 4 because I don't want you guys to overthink 4, 5, and 6. So let's take a look at number 4 on your homework really fast. Well, I want you guys to have more practice with 1, 2, 3, whatnot. Okay. Using number 4 as an example, Victoria, I'm using the discriminant, which is b squared minus 4ac. Let's go ahead and label my a, b, and c. Victoria, what's a? What's b? What's c? Okay. So my discriminant is b squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 3. Kylie, I don't know what you're doing, man, but let's quit playing with the makeup. All right. So, are we okay with using the discriminant? Okay, what's 7 squared? Easy stuff. 49. What's 4 times 6 times 3? That's going to be plus 72, right? That's a positive number, okay? But we're going to keep going because we need to solve it out. What's 49 plus 72? 112. 112? That doesn't make sense. It needs to be an odd. 121. Okay. Because 72 plus 50 is 122. Take 1 off, 121. Okay. So 121, you guys already know, is that less than 0, greater than 0, or equal to 0? Greater than 0, so we've got 2 real solutions. 2, so we use the discriminant. We use the discriminant just to determine the nature of the roots. The nature of the roots are 2 real solutions, or 2 real roots, right? Exactly, and that's why I don't want you guys to overthink it, because then the next part of the question is, so find the roots, find the actual roots using the quadratic formula. You've already found what goes under the square root. Don't do it again. You already found what goes under the square root. Don't do it again. So to find the actual roots, you have x equals negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 121. We already found b squared minus 4ac. All over 2 times 6. That is 12. I'll get there in a second, Lucas. What's the square root of 121? 11. Okay? And then, because of the fact that if this said negative 7 plus or minus the square root of 13, we'd be done. But we can simplify negative 7 plus or minus 11 over 12. So let's go ahead and find our 2 solutions. Negative 7 plus 11 over 12. Negative 7 minus 11 over 12. Yes, lots of times. Do you mind the fact that it's review? Yeah, so we get 5/12, that doesn't reduce, we're done. And then negative 18/12. negative 3 over 2. 4. 4/12. Aaron? 1/3. Good job. I don't like that 4. Okay. Pausing. I'm not pausing. I'm stopping this one. Why? You have a question? X equals, tell me the formula. X equals, cool. All right. X equals negative B. Not happening. I'll bring that.